Hey there, welcome to The Working Actor on Casting Workbook, and I am so thrilled that we have the one and only, one of Canada's most recognizable faces and broadcasters, and I would have to also say abroad as well, because your career has spanned, across Canada, but people recognize you also in North America.
It is kind to say that, thank you.
I'm truthful to say that.
How are you?
It's George Stroumboulopoulos. I'm great, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Nice
What's going on?
to see you too. Better known as George Strombo, right?
Here we are in Whistler, which is beautiful.
Whistler, which is no stranger to you because you've been here at Whistler. You did your actual show here a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think 19 years ago. Yeah. The Whistler Film Festival has been a place that I love to come to. Probably my 10th time here, I think. Maybe 8th or 10th time, yeah.
It's my first time here, and I've got to meet so many incredible people who I believe either they have films here or we're just interviewing the Whistler film crew, and now we're interviewing you. Whistler brought you over here because you're doing 2 series where you're interviewing Tatiana Maslany.
That's right, yep.
And Kobe.
That's right. And I think we're doing something with Blue Rodeo as well.
And Blue Rodeo.
I love.
Is it safe to say that Blue Rodeo can call you a friend and you can call Blue Rodeo a friend?
I think so, yeah. They used a clip of me in their documentary, which is what they're screening here, which is true, I liked Blue Rodeo in my 20s, I liked them.
So did I.
But when I got to my 40s, I don't know what I would do without them, because Blue Rodeo became this thing in my life lyrically, and there's just something about Jim and Greg. I think the two of them kind of represent the two parts of most artists. You sort of struggle and walk the line between the two versions of those guys, and there's just something really powerful about them. And then, me, my whole life is powered by song, and so when I hear some of those songs, I'm a bit frozen by how great they are.
I see what you did there.
And I liked them when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And these are great songs, but I didn't get it because I was still a boy. And when I became a man, I went, oh, fuck,
that's so
this
true.
is heavy.
Yeah,
and so it's
right.
a crisis of the heart when I started to really pay attention to Blue Rodeo. So yeah, I love those guys. And I think Jim Cuddy has played concerts in my living room more than any other artist has ever played in my living room.
Actually, live in your living room?
Oh, Blue Rodeo's done full sets in my living room, yeah, for sure. Lots of bands have, but Jim has played my living room so much. I love it.
Okay, a lot of people who are listening in are saying, this guy is incredible, right?
Jim Cuddy? Yes.
No, and you! We're talking about you. This is all about you, not Blue Rodeo, although we do love Blue Rodeo. But this is about you.
I'm relentless. So this is the good and the bad about me. I'm relentless. So everything, it's that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yeah, that's
me.
you.
That's me. So
yes, you are.
I want to try all the things, do all the things.
Yeah.
A lot of them work and are good, and a lot of them don't work and are no good, and I kind of don't care either way, because I want them to be great. I do, but I'm not married to that. I want them to be done. I want to figure shit out. I want to learn stuff, and I think when I'm dead and gone, there will be if anybody stumbles across the ashes of what I've done, they'll look at it and go, he tried a lot of things. He was interested in the world. And I think that's what moves me. So if I feel like doing this, I'll try to do it. And I often get it wrong. And I don't mind that.
Well, you don't look like you get it wrong.
Oh, but I do. And I don't mind.
Right.
Because how can I get, you have to learn things, right? It's a workbook, right? It's a craft. This whole thing is a craft all the time. And if your craft, whatever it is, if you do it enough, I think it's like a video game. At the end of that, you get a key to unlock a part of the truth inside you, and then you can apply the thing you feel. Because most of what we do, especially as we're learning how to play a role, or write a film, direct a film, make a record, anything, we're mimicking the things we have experienced in our lives, the stuff we've studied, and then we draw upon our own experiences, which we hope will make it a little bit ours, but all that's intentional.
Yeah.
The real art and the real magic comes when you don't even think about it and it comes through you. That's the stuff that's really magical with artists. And I've interviewed, like you have, many, many artists who don't even know how they got to that thing.
Right.
That's the magic, but you can't get there without relentless effort. And you don't deserve it unless you have relentless effort.
I think you're giving us a masterclass here, and we really appreciate that.
It doesn't always work, though. It really, because sometimes it sucks. It really does.
But you know what? Let's just talk about you, and let's rewind a bit, because a lot of people who are tuning in, either they love you with all of the jobs that you've done and all the hats that you've worn. Much Music, CBC, CNN. Then you went into Apple Music. Then you're an entrepreneur now. You're directing and producing your own film. Do you ever sleep?
I sleep better now, so I try to go to bed at 9:30 at night. I don't fall asleep until, because I don't want to go out, because I go out and get in trouble. So I have...
That's another show to talk about.
It is, and I know me, right? And the older I get, and I build these guardrails in my life to keep myself healthy and safe and alive, but the older I get and the closer to the end I get, the less I care. So I can see myself, it's like the climate crisis. The Gulf Stream is
Yeah.
wobbly.
Yeah.
So when you get older, sometimes the Gulf Stream in your life gets a bit wobbly. So I realized it's like, oh, I'm probably not good for myself. So I go to bed early. I don't fall asleep till maybe midnight or 1. I sleep for about 4 hours. And then I get up and I'm so excited every day to get out of bed and start I'm so excited to try. I love it so much just to do things. And I think that is, I never lost my joy. So the rest, like my body doesn't work the way it used to and all that, but I have never lost my joy, and I think that's key.
So that's powerful that you just said that, because a lot of actors who tune in, especially with COVID, right? Because auditioning became virtual, and some actors who only started off in COVID never had that opportunity, that one-on-one opportunity to get an audition face-to-face with a casting director,
you're
right?
not in the room anymore, right? You're not in the room.
You're not in a room anymore. And they have a hard time finding their joy or keeping the momentum high because they're going through auditions and auditions and they're not getting the gig. But here you are saying that you wake up every day and you're excited.
I think the key is, and this is the downside for people who do what we do for a living, is so much of your experience is tied to somebody else's reaction. You have to remove the need for that feedback. You have to, like, again, this is all tied to people's mental health, so everybody has their own experience with this, and I don't know your diagnosis, I don't know what your life's like, I don't know your dad, I don't know if he was there or not, I don't know any of that stuff, right? So I don't know what makes you you, but I know, I've been on the air this December, I think, is 32 years since I've been on the air.
Wow.
And most people didn't, in Toronto.
Congratulations.
Thank you. People didn't start to know who I was in Toronto until early, let's say summer of 97 is when I had a show that was starting to get a little bit of heat because I was interviewing a lot of bands that they liked, and it was in that era. Green Day, Soundgarden, Nine Inch, it was in that era, right? Amy Mann, just great artists. And so I've been doing this a long time. And the downside to it is that so much of your actual experience is connected to this. And I think that matters. But what should matter is, are we actually connected? Not how do you feel about me? And I feel like for most people who, I've interviewed a lot of actors like you have, for most people I've worked with, I've directed actors, the ones who can get there powered by themselves, those are the gods. The gods are powered by themselves. And there are lots of super talented artists who can get there and are not powered by themselves, but the gods are powered by themselves. And you have to feel it within you. So you're not in the room anymore. Who cares? Who cares? Most people feel the same way you feel right now, so outlast them. Like outlast them, find another gear. And I know that's not practical when you don't know how to find that gear, but you can, because the gear is found by lots of people. Find the gear. And I have never, even though I have experienced the grace of others in my career, and you will as well, it all comes from in here. It all comes from in here. And in radio, maybe it's because I started in radio, where you don't meet people, you're talking into this mic, and you're just part of their lives. So there was no feedback, right? And the feedback, and there's something really beautiful about learning your craft without the feedback.
You're right.
This is why I think you should be making short films on your phone for 2 minutes and put them on YouTube and get feedback, but don't rely on them, because everybody, when I say get feedback and don't rely on it, it's like you're going to get hammered by people, strangers, and just find a way to manage it, because 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road, you are going to have that much more experience. So when you get your break, you are ready for the opportunity. Right? And but it has to power yourself.
Such good advice. Such good advice.
That just works for me. Right? That works for me.
You mentioned radio, and when I started off in radio, the best advice that I ever got was, don't imagine that you're speaking to millions of people. Imagine that you're just speaking to your best friend, or that person that you feel so comfortable with, right? We were talking
so there's this one woman that I saw, and it was when I did the Red Chair talk show on CBC as well. But before an interview, a lot of times I would put music on my iPod back then, and I would go and sit on Queen Street in Toronto, and I would just sit and watch people go by, and streetcar would pass, the 501 would pass on Queen Street all the time. Schedule was terrible, we never were on time, but it would pass. But I remember this one woman who was just leaning, probably like in her 20s, leaning against the window, headphones on, and was in her own world, and she was crying. You could just see little tears coming down her eyes. I think about her all the time when I go on the air. I think about her all the time, because I think that our job is not about you, and it's not. We're already here. Like, we're lucky. We're so privileged. This is an opportunity and a privilege. It's not. We're not destined to do this. That shit to me doesn't make any sense. But that woman who is on that streetcar is going to go home. I don't know what her day was, why she felt that way. They weren't joyous tears, because you could tell the difference. But if she's going to go home and open up her iPad and scroll and tap on your thing, you better be there for her.
Ah, George, come on.
No, but that's what I
You're
think about.
amazing.
No, but that's what I actually think about.
That
I think
was
about
amazing.
her, and I saw her probably, I don't know, man, like 15 years ago. 15 years ago I saw her when I was doing that show. And I think about her all the time, that we're here, and because all the benefits you want from this bullshit life, you're going to get anyway. You're going to get them anyway.
Yeah.
So if you do it the right way, you're going to get them and you're going to feel good about it.
Yeah.
Because you did it the right way. At least that's my way of
So
looking
I
at
know what everyone is thinking right now. How can we get more of George,
No,
right?
no,
Yes,
no.
because you need to do your own master
They're
class.
like, will somebody shut this guy up?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Do you look
because
at my socks? I got the Notorious B.I.G. on my
Very-
socks. You know?
I love it. I love it. Okay, so we went through all of your career accomplishments, and I was wondering, have you ever
But you left out,
What?
because you're saying all these nice things and I appreciate it,
Yeah.
but you left out Hockey Night in Canada when I got
Hockey Night in
smoked.
Canada.
So I did not get loved for that. I got pummeled for that.
Okay, but that's
that was okay, though.
That that was a learning experience. But
Yeah.
you know what? I think that made you even a better broadcaster.
I hope so.
Right?
Maybe a better person.
And a better person.
Hopefully. But yeah, I have been so lucky to do stuff that people loved, and I've done stuff that people hated. And I think either if I was true to myself, then I don't care. Either way.
But do you think that the reason why people, you say hated, probably challenged you was because they stereotyped you?
Yeah, for sure.
And they were like, this is a guy who's been, talking to bands all his life.
Yeah,
What does he
yeah.
know about
Hockey.
sports
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hockey?
And they also, I think people don't like change, and I also think that I was trying to, sometimes when you, and this is true in any aspect of life, but in art, for me, that was a specific example of it. But when you try to move things forward, what people feel is that it's an affront to them, as if how they were doing it was wrong. And it's not. It's just that times shift and cultures shift, and sometimes to make things progressive or to make things bigger down the road, you have to make uncomfortable choices now. Take a role that you don't want to take, but it's going to teach you something that'll make you better when you have to. Like, these are the sorts of things that I think people don't want to contend with, and change makes them feel like they were doing something wrong, and they weren't. Also, some people just didn't want to believe me in that role, and that's totally fine too.
But you
That's
had to
what I
believe in yourself, and you did.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
I mean, after last night, after a late night out, I went back to my hotel room and I watched the Habs game on my iPad. Like, I love that.
I love that you're still a Habs fan.
for sure,
I love that.
for sure.
He didn't just say it because I'm from Montreal. He really is a Habs fan.
I love Habs.
But we were going through all of your
Yeah.
accomplishments, and I never knew you dabbled in acting.
I started as an actor.
You did?
I started as an actor.
I had no idea.
I started as an actor in theater. I did a play in Toronto. It was a good play. It was written, I don't think I was very good, but it was a good play that was written by a teacher of mine, which was it was a hybrid of Gulliver's Travels and Waiting for Godot, where Godot was actually Gulliver, and so it was while they were waiting for him, where the hell was he? And it was where he was. So I did that. So I started as an actor, and I sort of figured I was a teenager. I was an usher at a movie theater. I didn't apply to college at first. I didn't care about college. I joined the Army. I did all the stuff that I shouldn't have done. And then I just thought I would be like an independent filmmaker. That's what I thought I was going to do, because I worked at a movie theater as an usher. And I went, oh, maybe I'm going to make, movies. Reservoir Dogs and Do the Right Thing had come out, and Spike Lee really changed. Seeing Do the Right Thing was a really crazy moment for us, and coming from raised by an Eastern European woman, a lot of the Cold War era films that would sort of that I would end up seeing, it's just film at the time, alternative indie film was sort of on the same trajectory as alternative indie music, and the two of them together gave you a visual and an audio experience for like this ultimate Gen X life, right? So we were watching Jim Jarmusch movies, and we just felt so cool. And we go to these repertory cinemas and watch Nosferatu played on a film projector, like a small film projector, and you can hear it. So there was all these. It was all your senses were, and the theater smelled terrible. So all your senses were engaged, and you what is that? Because it was probably a porn theater.
You're really
at one
having
point.
a nostalgic moment right now, aren't you?
but so all of that made me think I'm gonna make films.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to make films, so I didn't know how to do it, so I didn't do any of that. And then I just got weirdly into this business, and then my career went on that trip.
Wow.
And I went on that trip, but it wasn't part of the plan.
Do you miss acting at all? Is there any part of you that
No, I
missed
still
it?
do it. I just acted in a film, a feature that just premiered in LA. I acted in a TV series in Canada called
Orphan Black.
I was in Orphan Black.
Yeah.
I did a cameo.
Okay.
Yes, I was in a one called Communist Daughter, which was airing on Gem. So I still do some of that stuff. I acted in one of them because it was during COVID.
Okay.
And then I directed another one which I didn't act in. So I do act. I would do more of it.
Right.
I would do more of it for sure. But I now, yeah, I'm down, man.
You're down
Like,
for
I'm
anything.
down. I'm down.
Okay, so the one question that we always get from all of the actors is, how do you go about memorizing your lines? And I know that, you know what, you've got the gift of
I've had
conversation.
a lot of concussions, so I forget lines. I've had 6 concussions. I don't remember the way I used to.
No, but George, I mean, just looking at you, everyone has seen you interview someone, and you don't interview people, you have a conversation with them, right? And you are not scripted, you're never scripted. You make everything seem so easy and seamless.
Well, and I do have scripts, and I'll have, you know, team will write scripts, or I'll write scripts, and I'll use them, but I think you have to believe it. And that's how it can become real. But how you do it is you practice.
Yeah.
It's just practice. To me, there's nothing really, the only magical part of if the question is how to remember lines, I study them. Like I study them and I read it out loud, and then I tape if it's a particularly, you know, I'm not in the kinds of movies where I get the really meaty, I don't get a soliloquy, you know? So I don't have to, you know, a lot of my lines are either exposition or something else, and those are easy to do. But no, I just study them. I treat this like a craft. I think there's no magic in it.
Yeah.
The magic happens when somebody who you never met connects to the way you did it. But that's out of your hands. And if you do it enough and you practice enough, you have a better shot at those moments. And people will see something in your eyes because you did the work. But it's just craft, right? So I study the lines. I watched an old interview clip with Peter O'Toole, and I think about it a lot because he just said, it's study. It's just study. Read it, say it out loud. Sometimes I'll tape it, and then I'll go for a motorcycle ride, and I'll put it on my headphones, and I'll listen to the lines over and over again, and then I read it. And then I don't try to know them all before I walk into it, because I just need to know what I have to shoot then. And also I try to know what I think they might shoot if they had time. So sometimes I'll talk to an AD and I'll say, I know these are what we're doing. If everything went totally Jake, and you were to add a scene today, what would you add? And then AD says, you know, we were talking about maybe, they don't always tell you this information because they don't know, but sometimes the AD will say, well, we might do this scene if we have time. So then in my back of my mind, I'll prepare just a little bit on the off chance we do that scene, but I don't need to know the whole thing. I just need to know the thing I need to do.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing as broadcasting. I know what I'm going to say to start the break. I know what I'm going to say to end the break. Now, if I can just get a little handle on the middle of it, you know, you've done a million breaks in your life, right? You know how to come out of a song, you know how to come out of a break commercial. So you know that. So I just need, what is the truth of this thing? And so when I'm doing my lines, I need to know that. And then what I do is I watch the director work with other actors in other scenes. And because I used to be a sports reporter, right? So I used to be an NBA reporter. And I used to watch how coaches watched players who didn't have the ball. So lots of people can be flashy and on it when they had the ball. But I would watch the players who didn't have the ball and see how they operated. So I'm the same when I'm on a set. I watch everybody who doesn't have the line.
Yeah.
And I watch the director, and I try to pick up on what the director gets from the actor that they're working with, because most directors, shockingly, aren't great communicators. Some are, but sometimes you get on a set and you're working with a director who you don't trust their instinct, and you think their ego's in the way, and you might be right, you might be wrong. So you have to figure out, well, if I'm going to stay on the scene, how am I going to work with this? And I'm not going to mail it in because I want whoever's watching to feel like I didn't mail it in. So I'm watching how everybody, now I do it in a really insane, intense way. This is exhausting to live like this. But this is what I do. I just watch people, and I talk a lot, but I listen way more. And I just look and I say, okay, I can pick up on what the director likes. I try not to worry about what the producer thinks, because I never do a scene for the producer. The producer will get involved, let them fight with the director. I don't give a shit what the producer thinks. But I really want to know what the director, unless it's TV. That is TV, then you got to think about the producer. But on a film set, I only really care about the energy of the director, because that's my girl, that's my guy. Everybody else can fight it out between themselves, and I'm too old to get involved in pleasing everybody, right? It's just, am I getting closer to what you want? So I spend a lot of time prepping my lines for that day, but then I start to look at, okay, well, what's my experience going to be like on set? Because I've worked with, so one of my favorite directors of all time, because I was 6 or 7 years old, maybe, yeah, around then. I remember being dropped off at a library in Toronto. They were my babysitters. And I remember sneaking by, following a bunch of old people down this hallway, and it was back in the day when the library, they might still do, would pull up a projector screen, and they would screen movies for free.
Oh, wow.
And so I watched Night of the Living Dead, the George Romero film. And I was honestly, I was nowhere near 10 at the time. And years later, I got to act in a George Romero film. And to be directed by George Romero is one of the highlights of my life. And it was around Halloween weekend, and watching Romero work with actors in the set scenes before, I knew he was going to want something from me that wasn't on the page. And I only had 2 lines, it was a cameo, and he told me, riff for 5 minutes. And,
really?
I was like, 5 minutes, I got 2 lines. But I riffed and I did it, and I watched his reaction, and that's just because I paid attention to him. Right?
That's amazing. That's a great story.
Oh, I love George Romero. Rest in peace. What a god.
That's an amazing
yeah.
story. You know, we always tell actors that they've got to keep perfecting their craft, and they got to keep learning, and they got to keep sharpening their tools. And I mean, you've been in this industry, like you said, for 35 years now, right? And you've had to adapt to the industry and the landscape changing in media. So what's the best advice that you can give to the actors right now?
Nothing's changed. Like, the things that have changed are not what you do. We're shooting on phones as opposed to film cameras, as opposed to DV cams. It's streaming on a device versus a big screen versus a TV. Those things are changing, but what you do,
doesn't.
The human connection has never changed. It's never changed. It's never changed. The cave print on somebody discovering old cave paintings. It's somebody saying, I was here, and here's who we were, and here's what we did, and here's what we had, and here's our journey. If you look at the war rugs from certain parts of the world where, especially the traditional ones, where people are weaving in the stories of, we were here and then they came and they did this to us, that's never changed. And that's never gonna change as long as we're humans, and singularity I don't think is ever gonna happen. Somebody will at me, but I don't think it will. So that part's never changed. And we live in this super filtered world. We live in now people in the real world are walking around and they look like filters. And that's good. I think it's great. I don't mind. But what's never changed is, let me see what your eyes tell me. Do I feel you?
I hope so.
Never changed. Yeah, but that's never changed, right?
No, it's never
It's
changed.
never changed. So I wouldn't be distracted by all that shit. Except for, I say that and I say this. You now have to be all the things. You have to understand marketing. I see actors complain all the time about how they don't have, oh my God, they won't hire me if I don't have a social media account. Well, of course. Of course.
Got to brand yourself.
Because they need to know that your audience, you don't have to have a lot of people, but you have to have a community. Because your community has to come out for you. We live in that Eras Tour era, right?
Yeah.
Where we're a community. So yeah, it sucks that you have to now be that person, but you have to be that person.
Yeah.
Because unless you don't want to be that person, and then there are countless places you can make art, and that's cool, but to play at this game, you have to know these sets of rules. And I think, now I actually don't think that's a downside. I think it sucks because it's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to do, and I've done this a long time. I don't know how to I don't know how to do all that stuff, right?
But you don't have to.
Well, no, but I do. I still, and we do. I see both of you and I are grinding on Instagram like we're out there, right? And we're doing it.
George, you're outing me right now.
No, we both grind.
We're both grinding. We're both trying. We're both trying to stay relevant.
Yeah,
I mean, but you don't have to because you're always relevant.
But I don't think we're trying. I'm not trying to stay relevant. Are you trying to stay relevant?
I'm not trying to stay relevant. I'm just trying to
keep it going.
I'm just trying to keep it going
me
because
too.
I really love this industry.
Me too.
And I want to keep working at it.
Totally,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think that's dope.
Yeah.
And I think the relevance comes to you because you're yourself. You're your authentic self.
Yeah.
So that's how. So I think it's really interesting. I've worked at lots of TV networks where we would complain about the marketing department or the promotions going, oh my God, they're not promoting.
They're not doing enough,
Yeah,
right.
Well, now it's in your hands. Do you know how to do it? Or were they smarter than you? Right? So so that's what's happened to me. And I'm like, oh, I got to figure stuff out, things I don't know how to do anymore. But I can tell you this, if you dedicate yourself to building a community that believes in you, they will come along with you for the ride. So if you get cast in this movie, cool. What would be cooler is if at some point you make your own movie on your terms with your people and they come along, and now you get more people who are in your community, and you have to be in theirs too. It's not a one-way street anymore.
Right.
Most people don't watch entertainment to feel entertained anymore, unless it's like your basic sitcom stuff or a big Marvel-y thing. People want solutions to their problems, and so you have to be a part of their lives now. That's what's changed, but the part of it that hasn't changed is if it's still you, they'll believe you. At least that's what I think. That's what I think. I don't know if this doesn't work for everybody, because you have to you have to honor your own brain chemistry and your work ethic, but that's how I feel.
You know what? I've interviewed a lot of people, and we've interviewed a lot of people on The Working Actor, but you have always been my favorite to sit down because we learned so much from you, and I've known you for so many years, and I keep on learning new things about you.
How long have we known each other? A long time.
A long time. A long time.
We've hosted shows together.
We have. I mean, I've been honored to host.
We've hosted
something with
shows.
him, but thank you so much.
And you did good work. You came and you helped us raise a lot of money for a school in Haiti, which is amazing.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thanks for making the time.